Mainguruari ekingo diogu orain eta ikusten duzue ondo baino.
We're going to start with the panels session, and as you see, we're very well surrounded.
Education and training, digitalization, sustainability, and inclusion from international networks. I am pleased to introduce our panelists, Don Ward, President of the World Federation of Colleges and Polytechnics, WFCP. Let's give her a round of applause. Stefano Tirati, Vice President of EfVET, European Forum of Technical and Vocational Education and Training.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Madeleine Jonsson, President of Earlall, the European Association of Regional and Local Authorities for Lifelong Learning. Txalo bero bat, berari ere. And Boudewijn Grievink from the Community of Practice Centers of Vocational Excellence, CoVE. So, to start, I'd like to ask each of you to briefly explain your project and how it relates to digitalization, sustainability, and inclusion. I know that it's not easy breaking the ice, but Don, let's start with you.
That's okay. So the World Federation of Colleges and Polytechnics is a global influencer for TVET, and we have a network of members right across the world, and we aim always to sort of connect and to match our members, who often are associations, and I'm really, really pleased to say that Stefano EfVET is a member. So all the member institutions are automatically a member through him, and Technica, who also sit on the board of the World Federation. And it's really good that, you know, we've got great European representation as well as across the world. So I just have to say, I'm delighted that we've got Tafe from Australia here in the room today. Mary's here. I know that we've got Emma from the Association of Colleges in the UK. I know that we've got Donna from CJ, Council of Community Colleges Jamaica with us. We've got Alejandra from DUAC in Chile. So there's quite a lot of representations, and I think I've probably missed our colleagues who are here from Canada as well. Part of that is in terms of what we share and look at through a variety of events we do, affinity groups, where there is learning and sharing around all of the topics that are critical to all of our economies. I think what is interesting for me, from the World Federation point of view, is every country is on the same journey. They're all at different stages. So actually internationalization helps every one of us sharing around particular subjects, whether it is on sort of green skills, digitalization, applied research, where people are with industry and the work that's going on. So it's a little bit about WFCP, and I know that you want to get a little bit about each organisation first before we then answer some further questions.
Okay, thank you, Stefano.
Thank you for the invitation. Egunon. My Basque limits there. Also, ongi etorri, I can say, and also say, which is the same as in Italian, say. So I'm here honored to represent EfVET. EfVET stands for European Forum for Vocational Education and Training. It was established in '91, so we have a nice history. Today, EfVET represents about 2,000 training centers across over 30 countries. I would say our members operate from A, like agriculture, to Z, zoo management. In between, you find such a rich variety of professional profiles, qualifications. And among our members, we have champions of vocational education and training, like Technica and many others. I like EfVET because it's an inclusive association. So we welcome big organizations, small schools, industries, corporate academies. And of course, this diversity is a richness, is also a challenge sometimes when you need to discuss about strategies and vision, but it's also very much richness. And also, I like EfVET because it's a democratic association. maybe nowadays is not so popular, but we still believe in this value. So we have this bottom-up approach where we consult our members, we ask what are the challenges, what are the needs, how do you see bottlenecks at legal level or at operational level, how things are evolving in terms of learning strategies, technologies. So we try to nurture this kind of dialogue in order to inspire our activities. So let's say, to conclude, EfVET as this twofold approach. From one side, promoting horizontal collaboration among our members, and I will discuss a little bit more how we do this, as well as we have this ambition to impact policies. So to try to consult authorities at European level and then at national level to share our perspectives on how, on a collaborative approach, we can improve the positioning of VET, the funding of VET, and its impact. Thank you.
Madeleine.
Yes, thank you. Well, Earlall is this network together with members from different regions, where Basque is a region that has been for a long time, and also the previous presidencies before me. And we work with both trying to have an impact on EU policies in this area, how to work with the lifelong learning and the reskill and upskill, and we try to find ways of building projects together, and also for regions to learn from each other, because I think also that we are all everyone is in a transition right now, but we are in different positions. And I think it's really important that we need to cooperate more, we need to network more with each other. Everyone doesn't need to do the same mistake. We want to learn from each other and take the good raisins in the box and see how can I copy that to my region. And for me, that comes from Västra Götaland in Sweden, which is a little bit like the Basque country, that we also is an industry region. The car industry has been very big. They're happening a lot of things right now in Sweden in general. I guess you have heard of the Northvolt bankruptcy. And there is a mixed situation right now with a lot of feelings. Where is our position, not only for Sweden, but also for Europe in this industry? And it comes more doubts. Should we build battery factories? What is the industries we should be strong in the future? And for there, what I have learned in this network and with our members is that the best right now we can do is just to invest in education, in learning skills. And then we find new ways. And we recently opened an education battery center in Gothenburg together with the industry and the technical college. As one example on how you can skill up workforce for the future, because we know the future is happening, we know that we will need the skills. And so doing projects like that, also sharing with each other is one of the main purposes, but also make sure that the EU policies are keeping up to what we need. Thank you.
Your turn.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the pronunciation of my very difficult Dutch name. I think it was a big achievement. Well, like you mentioned, my name is Boudewijn Grievink. I work for an organization called Catapult from the Netherlands. And since 2019, together with Technica, we've been facilitating this community of practice of centers of vocational excellence. And this community is really a community of people working on a day-to-day basis in the vocational schools, together with the companies and regional governments, to address these skills questions, trying to implement the centers of vocational excellence. And we realized that on the one hand, you have the nice policies, but there's also an element of, okay, we have to implement it. And it's sometimes difficult. Sometimes you can feel a little bit lonely when you're trying to make a change in your ecosystem or in your school. And this is what the community of practice is all about, to really connect all 69 centers of vocational excellence that are currently funded by the Erasmus program, to learn from each other. So on a monthly basis, we discuss with each other, like, okay, how do we involve SMEs in these activities? Well, we were talking a lot about training, but how about innovation in the workplace? What kind of role can centers of vocational excellence play in that? But also, if we have the project money, how do we continue afterwards? Like, what are strategies? So it's really hands-on, based on the needs of the people working on a day-to-day basis on these centers of vocational excellence. And the entire idea is basically to exchange great ideas, best practices, lessons learned, and yeah, all to make sure that no one has to reinvent the wheel over again, because we simply don't have the time to, well, make the same mistakes over and over again. And also we are in this together as Europe, so we should really support each other and celebrate the, well, diversity of Europe and build on that strength that we have all together.
Okay, after the presentations, let's begin the discussion. I will pose some questions, but feel free to jump in and answer in any order you prefer. So let's start with a broad one. Vocational education and training is constantly evolving to adapt to new technologies, labor market changes, social needs, and new regulations. What are the biggest challenges vocational education and training is facing?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges that we'll see within TVET, and it is, I'm talking across the globe, is very much around the upskilling, reskilling, learning fast enough to keep up with technology. In the same way, the work with industry, the changes rapidly taking place in industry. And if I'm looking at it from an institutional point of view, so if I was an institution, I would say to you, part of the other part with that is also about the funding, the investment that goes in for teacher development, for equipment, because it's all costly and people delivering at the same time. If you said you're not a teacher, if you are a teacher, you care passionately about the students that you're working with, the links you have with industry, keeping your skills up to date, and the rapid, we've seen it, and we all saw that through COVID, didn't we? The sort of change that we all had to make and adjust to. And who knows with this volatile world, how quickly there's going to be other things that we may have to adapt and change to. So it's really, really important that all governments are really working closely. And it's great that we've heard today about the Basque Country and what's going on here in the investment. But it's really important that there is money that goes in to make sure that we've got the availability of staff. The other point I'll probably just make and let others add in and come back on it is we all know that the impact of COVID and the change of if you like, social mobility of young people, their hopes and dreams are very different. I'm a baby boomer. I hate to admit it, but I am. Hopes and dreams today of the jobs they want to do and their expectations. So culturally, businesses and colleges and institutions, the accessibility, inclusivity, equity and diversity are really, really important. The way we do things is going to be really, really important to go at speed, to encourage them to work, whether it's within the businesses, within the colleges, to learn and progress. There are so many, many challenges, I think, but the one thing I know about TVET and the thing I know about the staff in TVET is they're fantastic. They're adaptable, they're flexible, they are absolutely superb, and thank you to all of you that are in that field, because I know you do an amazing job day in, day out.
Let me tell you, I'm not a teacher, but my husband is a vocational education and training teacher.
Still within the family.
Yeah.
We like that.
So, yes, of course, among the challenges, technology, the evolution, the speed of technology is very important. And indeed, we need to invest in technology-enhanced learning, in technology tools, in technology as a subject. But one important challenge is also well-being. So we believe that if we do not invest also in parallel on social skills, collaborative skills, well-being, then this dichotomy will have a strong impact. So we cannot invest in technology without looking after the human factor and the well-being. But then also let me take this opportunity to, from EfVET association perspective, I would like to say that indeed, as has been said earlier on, we are living in a crazy world. There is people separating countries, and we believe that as educators and as vet practitioners, we have the mission and the possibility to counter this narrative. We hear that the only narrative, that the only way forward is investing in defense. And if we only invest in defense, then we go nowhere. So we've been sharing this message that we need to counter this narrative and invest in education, because education builds bridges, unite countries. And let me share a couple of examples. A few months ago in December, we signed as EfVET with UNESCO UNEVOC, which is the agency of UNESCO responsible for vocational education and training in Bonn, a memorandum of understanding, and we had this conversation. How can we jointly counter this narrative that defense is the only way forward? And we identified among the 10 pillars of UNESCO UNEVOC, the last one, the 10th, is global citizenship education. So we said, okay, let's start small, but on a concrete step, let's work together on this one, promoting global citizenship education and internationalization as it is happening here, because this exactly goes in the opposite direction. Another example, 2 weeks ago in Rotterdam, we organized one of our activities of a working group, a global VET, we call it, to promote international collaborations. And we had a representative from a United Nations Refugee Agency. And that emerged very clearly how VET and skill development is important, is crucial for displaced people. So this is just to say that VET practitioners, us in this room, we can play a very important role in this crazy ecosystem and having a strong concrete impact. So these are big challenges that are around us, so we can focus on our corner, but we cannot do it without having a little bit wider open approach.
Can I just add, and I think, Stefano, you made a really, really good point about educators and working together, because as you know, as member and others, the internationalisation and the working together not only benefits our staff and our students, but we grow together, as you said, and learn. And I will just share with you, we have US colleges that are members. And recently in one of our conversations we had, although they've had funding cut for things like diversity, you know, we were all quite horrified, aren't we, with some of those things that are taking place. But we heard, we're carrying on as normal. Dawn, we're carrying on as normal. We've got our SDGs up. They may have said, you know, the politicians may have said, we're not following that. But actually those institutions, those educators recognise and value what needs to happen. And they are going to continue. Now, they may get funding from, you know, different foundations. As we know, they get a lot of funding, don't they, in the States from different foundations. But I think it just shows you that, and I'll go back to TVET, in spite sometimes of what goes on, TVET makes things happen. Educators come together to do the right thing, to make sure students get the right thing, to make sure industry get the right skills, the transferable skills, whether we're looking at resilience, you know, as you said, innovation, etc., and that sharing and learning. So I think the Mr. Dunn's presentation, it was a wonderful comparison between US and, you know, that picture said 1,000 words, didn't it, going through. But there are people there, and there are students, and there are educators who are still committed and on the internationalisation, still want to work together so that all of our children and grandchildren, etc., benefit in the future.
Boudewijn, how can international cooperation help overcome these challenges?
Well, I think one of the elements that we can do by working together internationally is to realize that we're all facing the same challenges, so we can also learn from each other in finding solutions. And I think one of the good examples, for instance, like in the Netherlands, we have this certain image of vocational education where people are saying like, well, all the kids should go to university, and also companies see vocational education mainly as the place, okay, that's where we get our students. So they don't recognize the added value of the role vocational education and training providers can play in the ecosystem in terms of innovation, bringing together different companies, especially SMEs, transferring knowledge into the workplace. So like a broader concept of training. And well, the way how, for instance, the collaboration between Technica and Catapult really helped is we brought like many of our schools here, and they realized like, oh, wait a second, this actually can be done. It is possible to structurally work together with companies, with teachers in these kind of projects, working on innovation, teaching students. And I think it's this kind of inspiration and also sometimes the encouragement, like, okay, yes, we are fighting an uphill battle sometimes, but it can be done. That's where international collaboration really helps in terms of inspiration. And I think we yeah, also within Europe, within the CoVEs, you notice that you can be more effective by offering mobilities for workers, for students, for teachers, but also developing digital solutions for teaching together, for instance, which is, well, way more effective than trying to do it by yourself. And I think this is the beauty of the Centers of Vocational Excellence, that it very clearly has this regional component, which is at the very heart of vocational education and training, like being, well, locally anchored, so to say, but in the same time also being connected throughout Europe with, well, other people who are either also like state of the art in your field, or regions that are trying to get there as well, and really working together in, well, achieving this goal.
Mm-hmm. Madeleine?
Yes, I think what we need to learn a little bit about, like, everything. Before, we could do a reorganization and then it was done. And then maybe in your life you will do another reorganization, but that's it. Today we do reorganizations daily. That's meaning that we are in constant change, we are in constant transition, and connected to that, that means that we need to be in constant learning. And I think it goes on actually to when I look at, I have a 7-year-old. He cannot read, he cannot write, he's just starting school. He knows everything about dinosaurs without reading and writing, which is pretty amazing. And I really doesn't have parents that teach him things like that. He's interested in something and he learns. He has an enormous curiosity, exactly like every 7-year-old. We need to break the code on how to keep people having the same curiosity all the life to learn things, even if you don't have everything. We will help to give them the tools, and we have digitalization, we have VR, we have artificial intelligence, we have a lot of things to help people to learn, to keep, but we need to have people to be curious and wanting to learn all their life. Because unfortunately today, if I ask him in 10 years, he will not remember anything about dinosaurs. And he will probably just be very tired of the school system. And when I tell him that you will need to keep going to school all your life, that is not what he wants to hear. That is the mindset we need to work with, together with all these great examples on how the schools are doing, but also how to shape the school. Because today we know that if you go to the university and you have an education of 5-7 years, we know after 3 years, your knowledge starting to be old. So when I graduate with my master, I already have old knowledge, which I think talks to the solutions we have with the VET, with other learning opportunities, and just going to the old-fashioned universities, for example, is the future, because you need to maybe have shorter learning periods, but you need to do it more often. And that is also, like we talk about this, like upskilling or reskilling. We need to be in a constant reskilling, and we need to build the society and to manage this, and that we probably need to do together with the industries to know which skills do we need tomorrow, and how do we work with this together, how do we make it possible for everyone, because like you said, it's when it comes to some of these industries, it's very expensive to start to have the college, to have the machines, to have the technologies and everything. So how do we make everyone come on that journey? That is not just the richest countries or the richest cities that that can afford to do it. So therefore, and therefore, I think the only way is that we need to cooperate with each other. We also need to see in Europe, to see every country cannot be strong in every industry sector. I see, especially in Sweden as a small country, we cannot be strong in every sector. I need to identify which are the strong industry sectors in my region, what kind of educations do they need, and yes, it will throw a lot of money over the military force sector. But that is not the sector that is super big in Västra Götaland, and it's not the sector that will become super big. So I cannot just focus on that just because there is where the money goes right now. I need to see other things. We have the space industry, that is very big. Okay, we have the dual use, we can build education connected to that can be profitable also for the military sector. But I think we need also to see that in Europe, that some countries will be very strong in some industries, and that will vary And then maybe we also need to help people to move. If you want to work with this industry, then this area of Europe is a good place to live, or to go and take your education and then come back home and work with it. But I think we need to do a lot of things just working with the mindset.
A lot to do, isn't there, for all of us in whatever we do? There's so much, I think, to think about. And I was particularly interested earlier when Mr. Dunn did a presentation on Industry 5.0, because, as I mentioned earlier, I think if we're looking at attracting people into industry, there are some fantastic industries, if I look across the globe again, that have, particularly some multinationals who've already started to do a lot of work on sort of equity and diversity, and realise that if they didn't work with the VET system, then actually they're not going to have staff in the future. So there are some really good examples of where things are happening, where we can then look at how do we as institutions raise those aspirations of young people as well to work in those particular fields going forward. So I think that Industry 5.5, we also have to think about the generations that are coming through and how we influence them into particular jobs for the future. Part will be around sort of some of the different skills that we give them, whether those are transferable skills built in. And I know that with some of the CoVEs and the practice that's going on, there's some really interesting work in sort of embedding things like skills promises in, which is not just about the curriculum and the delivery, but as you said, critical thinking, innovation, and those are going to be really, really important. But I think we should also recognise and value those industries that are shifting in that way, that are investing. So there are some institutions that have been fortunate where the particular industries have put the equipment in and they update it, but that doesn't happen for everybody. So how do we make sure everyone can access that, whether again it's through some kind of collaborative online learning. So if you're in another country, you get the opportunity to know about those things and see what's happening, because as you said, Madeleine, some countries can't afford to do that, but there could be young people that have aspirations to, you know, grow and develop in those particular industries. I think there's so much for us all to think about, but the learning that goes on from a variety of things. So, you know, whether it's EfVET groups, you know, the groups that you run, the ones that the World Federation run, there is just so much learning that we can share. I think the other one I just want to touch on is, and it came up again on the presentation just before break, is very much about that mismatch on, you know, when people are moving out of jobs and into industries. And I'm going to talk generically now because it may well be in the Basque Country they do this, and it's fantastic if they do, you know. But often we see in countries the qualifications that TVET have to offer don't change quick enough. Therefore, you have to deliver something that's out of date. And what industry often want are short, sharp courses in certain things. And I understand that different governments obviously like to measure against each other. But if we really want to focus on moving forward and making a real difference for the future, then all of those things need to be thought about. You know, are the qualifications that we have to deliver fit for purpose? Do they move quick enough? And I was getting nods across here, so I know, well, I know from experience talking, it would be great if that happens in a particular country where that is accessible for everyone. That would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. But
if I may pick up on this. You wanted to say something
as well, but go ahead, please.
We still have time, no worries.
So first of all, one remark about what you said. Indeed, I think the focus is very much on this concept of vocational excellence. And the beauty of it is that I think it helps us to look at the constructive solution-based direction. Because sometimes, not in the Basque Country, but in many other places, VET is not funded enough, the buildings are not so shining, equipments are not up to date. And so introducing this mindset, vocational excellence, looking at doors that I can open, not those that are closed, I think is very positive, very constructive, and we will always be grateful to João Santos, one of those introducing this, and the work that you are doing, Boudewijn, is very important. Also because we see some, as you said, bottlenecks. For instance, how VET is communicating itself. We believe that there's not enough applied research on VET, and we are not making awareness rising campaign based on data, based on the outcomes. As well as another element that we should improve is the go-to-market. VET providers are doing also through these centers of excellence, nice programs, and sometimes it's not in the DNA how you actually market, how you actually sell these elements. And based on what you said, Dawn, I like very much, you reminded me a study visit we organized in India a couple of years ago. So we have a new member from EfVET from India. So I go there and I was astonished. I found an ecosystem, you know, you have this prejudice, okay? Honestly, I'm sorry to say this. We have this Eurocentric approach that we think that we know how things should be organized. And instead you go to India and you find an amazing ecosystem where, referring to the qualification, every month the government meets with the VET providers, and every month the VET provider or the industry can say, look, there is a new technology, we need a new qualification. Not 2 or 3 years, every month they meet. So this, and I was so enthusiastic the first year. So the following year, last year, I had a delegation of 15 people from all over Europe coming, and all of them asked, Stefano, okay, we go to India, but, and then everybody came to me and said, wow, fantastic. We want to sign a memorandum of understanding, collaboration, exchanging trainers and learners, because things are happening. You really feel that the rhythm of industry development and so on. So
I think that's really important, Stefano, because you're right. Lots of people have an opinion of other countries, but our experience is there's so much learning from all countries across the world. You know, there is amazing things that are going on, which is why internationalization is just so important for all of us to sort of embrace. There is always something you can learn, you know, every day. I'm sure your husband says the same. Every day, you know, we all learn every day. We don't stop learning in whatever role that we do. And we just need to be very open to recognize that there are great things going on across the world, and take a little bit from each of them, but it's also sometimes you have to then contextualize it, because some things you can't just pick up and put in place. You have to contextualize it within your own situation and organization. Everybody, as I said at the beginning, is on a journey. Some of us might be further afield on one thing and someone else might be further afield on another. So it's just amazing when you have that network and you participate. Because I think the important thing is, often again, I'm just going to speak, you know, as being a teacher, you are busy, you engage in students, but actually you have to continually develop yourself. You have to keep up, don't you, with industry, not just here, but around the world, so that you can really inspire those students to be anything they possibly want to be. We all want to find those talents and make them shine.
Boudewijn, you wanted to share something.
Yeah, well, I was about to say about, well, the previous remark Don was making also, like you presented, like, okay, well, VET has a big responsibility here, but I think it's actually an ecosystem responsibility. When it really comes to the well, recruitment of children into certain sectors. On the one hand, that's something we have to do with primary schools and secondary schools as well. And what we see in quite a few CoVEs, that is within the network, you see companies that are happy because they know they need these kids, basically. Or also like all the students trying to retrain from one sector to another. But that's an effort that you really have to do together. So in a sense, it's also trying to, well, break down the walls of the VET institutions, in a sense, in, well, the sometimes classical way people are looking at VET schools, like, okay, that's where you go and this is the program. And that's not the case anymore. And I think that's the beauty of the development that's going on all across Europe, to see, well, also here in the Basque Country, like, these different roles, and also this joint responsibility to make sure that we have the right people in the right sectors.
And there are other people, sorry, Madeleine, across the world that are doing that,
yeah,
and have been doing it for some time. You know, there's been CoVEs in other parts of the world in the past,
yeah,
and there's lots of different, you know, examples. As I said, you then contextualize it. And in terms of, I think, you know, when I was talking about industry, I know of many industries. I worked for years with Toyota. You know, Toyota for years invested massively because they knew that if they worked with us as an organisation, it was going to help them. And we actually had a centre at Toyota for apprentices, where staff from the college and staff from Toyota, you wouldn't know they were different, worked together and learned and shared. So there is a responsibility, right? There's obviously government that have to look at how things are set up. There's organisations, and it is about leadership. I think someone talked about that earlier this morning. Leadership's really, really important, isn't it? In where we go and what we do, and being open and wanting to transform and challenging ourselves every day to do better, to find newer things, to share, to learn. Doesn't stop. Sorry, Madeleine, I think you were about to.
It's very interesting to listen to everyone. Well, something that I'm a little bit worried about is the young adults that we have today that are falling behind. That is just in my region, we have 28,000 young people between 18, 19, and 29 that are neither in school or have a job. 28,000 people. That is a lot if you count then how it is in my country, and then we take up in Europe. We have so many wonderful people, but that are not in the system. And here I think there is great possibilities when it comes to that, when it comes to shorter courses. Not everyone needs to go along university education and so on, but I think also we have a lot of people that struggle with, they are unsure about the future. And in the system we have right now is that we are focusing on education and skills, and then the job. We had actually a project when we did the reverse. We found some of these young adult and people, and we found them a job first, and then the skills. So they actually knew that when I have done these courses, or when I have done these 2 years course, I have a job. And then we worked together with the employers, with the companies that also knew that in 2 years we're going to need more employees. Not today, but we know if everything goes expected. Now we no longer know what is expected of the future, but at least what we thought was that we will maybe need 10% more people. Then we can actually start before to finding these people, motivating them, and then dress them with the skills and the education that they need. But then we also need the flexibility in the education system, so we're able to do so. Because if it is like you said from India, if we need to wait for the new technologies 2-3 years, then it will not work. So in this way, we need to rethink. But also here, I think this is the key. These kind of educations are the key to manage with that.
And knowing that, how can we improve the image of vocational education and training? What do you do to make VET more appealing?
But I think there is if you know what you're going to use it for, and also we had one picture on how it is to work in some industries, and it has changed a lot. Just the electrification has changed a lot. If you go to a construction place today and the big machines are run on electricity, and it's completely silent. You go into a factory that makes batteries, and it's completely white and clean, and you have robots. Most of your work colleagues are robots nowadays. People need to have a picture on what could their work future look like. And then they need to see how could the studies be like. But we need to break the old images on how it is in some of these industries. And there I think we need to be more open and invite people just to go and see, and like to say that we're going to find you a job. You are not qualified for it, it's okay. And then you will do study visits in different companies and different industries, and then you can feel, is any of these workplaces somewhere you could see yourself in the future? Yes. And then we give them the chance.
And I think in addition to this, like in the Netherlands, we have a couple of examples that I would like to add an additional step to what you're proposing, is also to really look into the drivers of students. Because basically, if you say, okay, come study engineering, you probably will get just a couple of the group saying, oh yeah, I like engineering. Whereas if you say, okay, do you want to make the world a better place because, well, you're going to be working on these kind of challenges and you will make the world more green, you're still going to study engineering because that's what's necessary, but it's a completely different story. And if you can tap into that, well, motivation of students, and I think we have, well, Gen Z, we have Gen Alpha, do we really know what their motivations are, or do we really know how they actually study? I think that's stuff we should look into together to make sure it's, the way we offer education is connected to, well, the way, well, this generation is studying. And that also means, like, for instance, with AI, you probably don't need a teacher anymore to, well, do like a lot of knowledge transfer, because we have ChatGPT for that now. But you do need to teach these students, like, okay, but how do you assess the quality of this information? Or, well, we all have this image in our head that Gen Z doesn't pick up the phone anymore because they're afraid of, a confrontation. Well, that's the kind of confrontation you need to, well, facilitate in the classroom now to, well, give them the skills to be able to work in an organization. But it all starts with, okay, well, who are these students and what are their characteristics? And then we have a whole lot of tools that we can use to adjust the education accordingly.
It's a very, very different approach, isn't it? Sorry, Stefano, carry on. Go, my friend.
I would like to react. You touched this point about inclusive education. This is very dear to our heart. EfVET has been involved in one of these centers of excellence, which was focused on inclusive excellence. And the first question was, how can you be excellent if you are inclusive? You welcome everyone, how can you be excellent? And then they flipped the tortilla, I don't know. How can you be excellent if you're not inclusive? So this is a value that it is the starting point, so they developed, now there is a group of over 500 people from all over the globe, and you are welcome to connect to this group. They have monthly webinars, and they have developed some models about inclusive education and inclusive excellence, focus on personalization of the training, real world education, as you were saying, and also looking at the full potential of the individuals. And in terms of making VET attractive, I have a question for you.
For me?
Yes, a little bit provocative, if I may. So, Amaya, I just learned that you are from television. You work in a local television, Basque television.
Basque TV, yeah.
Basque TV. So, how many movies you know that talk about universities?
A lot.
A lot. How many movies you know that talk about VET?
Not even one. I'm so sorry.
So what I want to say is that if we are serious in making VET attractive and change the mindset of the society, the families, the parents, we need to invest also in high-level communication activities, like a Netflix series about vocational education and training. Yes.
That's a great point.
Yes.
It's good.
Thank you very much. I was, in addition to the applause, I would like someone with money.
I'll talk to my boss. Maybe we can do something in the Basque TV.
Thank you.
I think, that it's so important, because everywhere in the world you have the same issue where university is held in higher esteem than TVET. But we all know, actually, what drives the economy is TVET. And it is really, really important. And we've heard today from, government here, how it's really, really important. And I hear it all the time through our members across the world. So they have the same issue, same challenges. And you are so right about making sure it's at the forefront. People should be talking about it. We want to hear ministers actually saying that they went through the TVET system. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And we've heard it in the UK. We've had ministers who claim, I say claim because they have done, but being a degree apprentice program they've been on and other things in the past. I think picking up the other points that have been mentioned, what I also think is really important is we've also got a plan for the future, and we need to be giving really good careers advice in a different way, the way you talked about in terms of inspiring people, but not just those that are ready to come in. We've got to have a long-term strategy of being in with young children, 7 years old and actually getting them to learn about TVET. I have to say in the UK, we've started to see a bit of a difference in actually parents' attitudes towards TVET, because in the UK, they come out of...
Something landed on you.
Oh, okay.
You are so attractive, Dawn.
I go, as long as it's not a mosquito, because I have an allergy, as my colleagues know, my face will blow up, but there you go. So we have seen where a lot of students come out of university with a huge debt, 40, 50, 60,000 pounds. And what we've seen in the last, I would say, 5 years is a shift in parents now encouraging their young people to go into an apprenticeship program. Now that's one aspect of TVET, but we are starting to see that happen. So we do need people talking about it. We need to work together. We need probably a social media campaign across the globe, which I know WFCP are about to launch, so I shouldn't have said that really. And we hope that you'll all participate in that, because we really want to celebrate and recognise what goes on and get that message out. But I do think we can look at the things now, but we also need to have a very long-term strategy, and we've got to be therefore focusing on what advice and guidance and how it's given in a very, very different way. If I think about how I studied and how my children, and I look at students, within the college, and if I go into a school, they learn in a very, very different way to probably most of us. So you've got to keep yourself up to date, haven't you? It's hard at times. It's hard following all of those things and learning about it. But sharing it together where someone else has maybe done some of that and you've done something else is a great way, those partnerships. But I don't think we should use the long-term strategy as well. We must make sure, and governments tend to often have a 5-year strategy because they change. I think we need to collectively have a 25-year strategy as TVET.
And maybe to add one last thing to the question, like how can we make VET more attractive? I think also by just doing it and organizing it in our own regions, like within the CoVE platform of Vocational Excellence Water, we did a hackathon on Malta at the request of the employers, because they were saying, okay, we need more people, so we want to show how fun the water sector actually is. And they said, we have serious issues with people from university coming to work, looking down at people coming from VET, and people from VET coming in with their practical skills and looking up to, people from university way too much. So we organized this hackathon where people actually experienced like, hey, well, these skills are complementary. And for a lot of people, there was a realization like, but these practical skills coming from people from the VET system are really needed. And some companies that brought in innovations were like, well, we were stuck with this issue and these students actually fixed it in 2 days. So what's going on? But to me, it also showed like with pre-assumptions, some people go into, well, even these kind of activities that you're already connected to each other, but still there's this image, and it's only by actually experiencing it in the collaboration between universities, VET schools, companies, that people really, truly feel like, okay, but this is the added value, and this is what people from VET can do, and also from other sectors can do. But I think it's that experience that we should give to as many people as possible.
I just want to make a short comment connected to what you talked about leadership, because I saw an example in a factory for Volvo cars where they were building this new factory, and one of the leaders leading the whole project is from the beginning has worked in the factory, comes with an education of it, but now is the project leader of this whole new factory. You also need to have role models. You also need to have that mix, because that is what you also will look up to. And when you keep the white collar and blue collars so separated, but when you have a blue collar that is actually the leader manager over a group of white collars, then it also, I think that hackathon idea is great and we should do it more, but we should also see who are the leaders. Because that changed a lot also in the mindset, and also to have the role models. And I also want to support what you said about the parents, because we see it still in some sectors when it comes, for example, for farming. That is also a sector that is happening a lot with technologies and drones and everything. But we have a really hard time to get the parents to support the children if they choose education to work in the farming sector, because they don't think that is not the future, and they have a picture on how that is. So we need to work sometimes more with the image set from the parents than actually the students.
Let me open another topic, the topic, I would say. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and other digital technologies are being integrated into vocational education and training. What is their potential?
Huge.
We don't know.
Like that, absolutely open. There's so much potential, isn't there? I'll go back again. If we all think prior to COVID, where we were teaching in a building every day, and then let's just look at from there to where we are now with the use of AI. I was talking with a colleague from Chile who's got an avatar teaching students. You adapt, don't you, to inspire as well and to learn in different ways. I just think it is just so open. It's very difficult to contain and say it's going to be this or that, because we don't know the future. We don't know how quick things are going to go. But if you go back even, I don't know, 50 years, it's pretty scary, isn't it? If you think how the world has changed to where we are today, what I do know is we need to embrace it. We need to embrace it, learn, but also look at how we mitigate for some of the things. If we think going back when sort of Google first came in, we had lots of young people, that was the only thing that they went to, Wikipedia, et cetera, and it's not always factual. If you are assessing students, particularly with ChatGPT, you've got to have policies in place, haven't you? You've got to train your teachers, you've got to know what you're looking for and how it works. I believe we have to embrace it, we have to learn, but there's a lot of things, and I think this is where the internalisation is really, really important. The learning together, the sharing of things that we've found out, whether it's about then teacher development on it, whether it's the use in the classroom, whether it's within industry. This is just so far-reaching tentacles, and we need to make sure we maximise those and use them.
So thank you. I like this question because
I knew it.
Yeah, you knew it. Because in EfVET, I work on a voluntary basis. So I am CEO of an edtech company based in Florence called Learning Digital. And our claim is learning comes first, which has a twofold meaning. From one side, learning is a value in itself. Learning comes first. And the other aspect is more pedagogical. So first, the learning, the teaching strategy, and then the technological solutions that you can adopt. So from one side, you can be very excited because many things happening, XR, immersive learning experiences, AI. But if you don't have a sound pedagogical approach, you go nowhere. So yesterday, we were in Technica, and I chose by chance some of the workshops because you never know exactly what you're going to get. And at some point, I took part in this workshop about the learning model. So I liked it very much. I have in front of me the moderator. Please tell me if I understood correctly. I liked it very much. At the heart is a challenge-based education, and then 4 pillars. One is an interdisciplinary approach, then teachers as teams, then flexibility, individualization of the learning path, and then assessment. So first of all, you need a clear strategy, teaching strategy, and also learning strategy. You need a learning model. Then, of course, I think technologies can help. For instance, in the flexibility, AI, learning analytics can help to individualize the learning process, for example, as well as in the feedback. Eventually, we can provide contextualized feedback for each and every student in a more closer approach than one teacher with 30 students. So indeed, AI technologies can serve the education system very much, but first you need to have a sound pedagogical approach.
Mm-hmm. Madeleine, Boudewijn.
I'm curious, did I understood correctly the lesson yesterday? Thank you very much.
I think it's super exciting. I'm completely in love with all the new technology and everything I realize every day that you can do. And I think we just need to embrace it, but to see what is the opportunities, it's a little bit like someone comes to present that I have made this round thing. I will call it the wheel. What do you think is the possibilities for this in the future? You have no idea what it will lead to. It can lead to so many things. What I think is that we should, instead of in some ways fearing that it just will take over things humans are doing and what should we do with all these humans that will not have anything to do, we should see what we can do instead. I mean, if I have a AI robot on my computer that handles my emails, I can save so much time and free time to sit here and discuss or traveling and building networks and learning things that the computer can't do. And I think it's in so many sectors that we need to see the potential now for people to do other things instead of some things, and not seeing it as a threat against jobs and humans. And I think if you look in the mirror, you don't want to go back. Before we had big machines digging, you would have 100 men digging with a shovel. You don't want to go back to that. To have 100 men digging with a shovel when we can have one machine doing it. And I think it's the same if we look some years from now, you're looking like, I don't want to go back and do all the things I did before ChatGPT or some other tool did it. And I think it's gonna be like that. We just need to learn how to use it in the best way.
And what about the risks of these technologies?
Yeah, of course, there's always risks, but would also say like you could also use it as an opportunity to reflect on how you've been doing things, because like with AI, one of the risks, or one of the first risks that was mentioned, that everyone saying the students will just plagiarize everything and they won't do the work by themselves anymore. And they probably will use ChatGPT because they are smart, so they will do it. But then the question is, okay, have we been testing our students in the right way, or what do we actually want to test with the students? So you could say, okay, yeah, this is a risk of how we in the education system test knowledge. And that risk is there the way we are doing it now. But yeah, also in the risk mitigation, you could start rethinking like, okay, but how should we go about this? Because one thing's for sure, it's here to stay. And yeah, like the previous speaker said, we don't know exactly in what direction it's going. And also maybe in a couple of years, we are like, okay, well, it's not as bad as we thought, but we just don't know that. So I think we just have to interact with it, engage with it, to experience it, and based on that decide what we want to do with it, and make it supportive to us humans, and not this image of, okay, well, we've been taken over by machines, for instance.
Don?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I think it's huge. I think for me, the other thing that I sometimes think about is what happens tomorrow if suddenly we've got no power for 2 weeks. So I do think that there are critical skills that we need to build into people. And I say that, I'm not joking about it. I sat in a doctor's surgery quite a few years ago where their IT system was down, they had no power, and nobody could do anything. They couldn't print out prescriptions, they couldn't make appointments, the whole thing just went. So, and that highlighted for me a risk of what happens if. And it's like all things, we have to mitigate risk. So I think we have to really think about what do we need to build in terms of the skills of people that we have through TVET, so that if something like that did happen, how would they adapt to things? Yeah. I think we should embrace it. I said, I do think we should embrace it. We shouldn't be fearful. We need to share and learn from each other, because across the globe, people are at different stages and there's some amazing things going on throughout the world. So we should embrace that, and we need to keep up with industry, which is why, going back to what we said earlier, the partnership with industry is so important, because they've probably got the money to have the equipment and facilities, and we need to make sure that, our staff are reskilled, upskilled all the time with what is going on, because we've got to be looking to the future as it goes through. I think it's exciting. I think a lot of people were really frightened, and I have heard in some countries, when I've met with certain countries where they have been quite worried about this, it's going to replace low-level work. But you're right, Madeleine, we have to think about what are the other things that people can do, and what will those jobs become in work, to actually oversee that, to develop it in different ways. Young people are excited by it on the whole. You know, as much as we said about sustainability, they really care passionately, don't they, about the environment. So we need to bring those things together, embrace it, learn, share, work together, make the world a better place, hopefully.
If I may take a different angle. A couple of years ago, I was in Barcelona at the Micro-Credential Summit.
Yeah.
There were about 100 university representatives, 3 or 4 people from VET, including myself, and a guy from LinkedIn, from Canada. One of the guys that introduced the education services in LinkedIn. So very smart guy. So I was somehow taking some distance because I was observing these university people, how they reflect about micro-credentials, fears, stomach aches, opportunities. And I was next to this guy. And this guy said, you know, Stefano, who is the bigger player, who is issuing biggest number of credentials is us. It's not the universities. It's not the traditional education system. Back in 2022, I didn't find, I tried, maybe they locked, I didn't find data, but back then, 12 million people received a credential from LinkedIn. So indeed, was the biggest player, at least in that room. So these pose a challenge to the VET system. Are we aware the market share that these big players are taking silently, more or less silently? So these, I believe, we need to reflect on our business models. Also because VET is used to have this client, a student that comes 3, 4, 5 years, then go away and you don't see it any longer. In the Basque Country, it's different, but normally this is what is happening. And so we are trying to advocate also among our members that you need to start widening the offers, being more dynamic. And in this sense, we believe that the micro-credentials can help to start thinking about new business models, new pedagogical approach, new organizational settings, new technological solutions. So also VET associations become old if we don't progress. And that's why we established this World Alliance for Micro-Credentials in the Netherlands as a working group with experts from all over the globe, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, countries where there is a legal base on micro-credential, where market recognize the value, just to learn from each other in order to promote a positive approach on micro-credentials based on skills, not on content. Like on Coursera, you go there, you go through a number of videos, and you get the credential. What are you able to do? So we need a skill-based, rigorous assessment and quality framework to support micro-credentials. So instead of sit and wait, we decided to do something, or at least try to do something, and promote this dialogue to put forward a positive approach on micro-credential. We see a potential benefit of it, as long as we interpret and we adopt in a constructive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Madeleine, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think one part of making the solution of also making the jobs after you the VET jobs or the blue collar jobs also more attractive is I think the key is a little bit in these new technologies. Because in my world, these new technologies are making companies and industries more efficient. We are much more efficient, producing much more now than we did 50 years ago, which for me means that maybe companies no longer need people to work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week. So here I see the benefit of people that will actually be able to go down in working time. Because I don't think these innovations will save the world, but I think people will do it. But people need time to actually save the world, or to have the energy to engage for a better world. And I think these technologies is actually now what will free the time for people for not to work a little bit less, but also be happier. It sounds a little bit like a hippie, but I think in so many ways, and I think especially when it comes to these jobs that sometimes cannot maybe always compete about the highest salaries, but can now also compete with other things, like maybe you work a little bit less because you work in such a high technology industry that are efficient anyway, even if someone is working a little bit less. And I think that is also what will make this work market very attractive for people. So that is also something positive that comes out of this. And I think in the education system, we should also teach the students to demand these rights a little bit, to questioning a little bit about this.
I would like to talk now about inclusion. How can we attract more women to VET? How can we create more opportunities for people with disabilities? Boudewijn?
Yeah, I'm laughing a little bit because, well, this is a question we've been trying to answer for 20 years in the Netherlands now, and I'm pretty sure we haven't found the answer yet. Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, the role models are indeed really important. It's the way how you present, well, for instance, technology. If you say, okay, come study technology, usually we see girls like, yeah, but technology in healthcare all of a sudden is like much more popular among girls. So it's about these stories on how to frame it. But I think also industry has a very big role to play here, because if you come into an industry with a certain culture, a certain masculine culture, we can recruit all the women we want for certain sectors, but it will be gone in 6 months. So it's really, yeah, like playing chess on multiple boards in that sense. And I think also in terms of inclusion, sometimes it's, well, presented as a goal as such, like, oh yeah, we will do something on diversity. Whereas I think for many organizations, we'll have to make the shift as well. Like, okay, it was mentioned before as well, like if you're not, well, inclusive, you just won't succeed. And one of the companies in the European Platform for Urban Greening, they have this well, social company, part of their organization, training people without any qualifications on EQF level 1 and 2. So just getting them the certificate. And these are people from 18 till 30, and most of them never got a diploma or any certificate whatsoever before. So, well, it's a very wholesome story. Like, people are proud of it. People are like, oh, how amazing you're doing this. And then the company owner was saying like, yeah, but I'm not doing this because of, well, of course he believes in it, but he's saying, I'm also doing this because I need these people to help, well, maintain the greenery that we are constructing. Because if we don't do it, then I will go out of business. And I think that's also the way how organizations should think about it when we're complaining about, well, the VET system not providing enough, well, people to work. Yeah, also look at, okay, how's your organization working? What kind of adaptations can you make in your organization to make people able to join your organization? And I think this is something yeah, that really has to be done together. And schools have a role in this, companies have a role in this, and also regional governments to really support these kind of initiatives.
I want to come back to what I said before. If you have a job where you work 30 hours a week and you have 40 hours a week, I know a lot of my female friends that will choose the job where you work 30 hours a week for the same salary. So I think actually that is not such a bad idea to look over here to actually make it more attractive. But then I think also you start thinking very young what you want to do when you grow up. This thing with, at least in Sweden, we call it summer jobs, where you have the chance from you are 15, 16 years to get a job in the summer, to get young people in very early in this industry to see the potential, and especially for girls. And I think also then, and then we come back to the role models. It's not only about the managers, it's the whole structures, because when you look into all these big industries where a lot of vets work and find jobs in, the highest, the CEO is a man, the board is a man, the owner is a man. We need also to start from the top. And therefore there is a bigger question, but we need to work with the whole system to actually have, we cannot just see who works in the lowest level and have equality. It needs to go all the way up to the ownership.
If I may, I think I need to go to Sweden to get some wisdom and reduce my working hours, hopefully one day. Just a comment, you reminded me that when I was in India the first night, I was invited to a cocktail, a garden party with top industry leaders. So there were Mr. Volvo, there is all the big multinational companies, and half of the people were women. So very high positions, managers. So this also tells a lot about the interest in promoting these international exchanges and get inspiration and pushing toward this direction. And in terms of attractiveness, you have my recipe. Is a Netflix docu-series about vocational excellence. Think about it.
I'd come back to the point that was made about the actual culture of the whole ecosystem. Because, and I'll use a phrase from a book that I read many years ago, culture is the game. If you get the culture right, you will get, if you've got inclusive culture, you will get that diversity, you'll have accessibility, and it will change. And then you will have the role models and things will work through. But I would say you're right, the biggest part, because I do feel strongly that TVET organisations are really making a difference on that. Generally, the makeup in many TVETs in different parts of the world, there's more female staff teaching, not everywhere, but in a lot of places. But then you're looking at particular trades or STEM subjects, etc. So I was talking with a colleague, Mary, last night or the day before about Australia, and I think we say that in the UK and Australia, STEM has changed over the years. So we do have a lot of women going through that. But trades, traditional trades, there's still some of that barrier, and part of that is very much about the culture of the industry in terms of attracting people. I think about my life and growing up and being a CEO for many years. When I first started, there was only 4 female CEOs within the vet system in my country. Now it's totally changed, it's transformed. So I think it will change, but it is about get the culture right. It starts at the top. Because if the leader doesn't lead it and live those values and demonstrate it, you have to live and breathe it. It won't permeate through the organisation. And you've got to be able to challenge people in your organisation to behave in the most appropriate way. Set those values, live them, breathe them, demonstrate them, and you will transform within an organisation. How we get all of industry to do that, I don't know. I think that's a really good one for us to develop further, isn't it, across working. They are starting to do it, and I know in your groups, and I know we've got groups that are sharing and doing the same. But we don't have, we've got to do, and that's what I said about WFCP, is very much about a global influence. It's really, really important that we do that with all our members. We share it, we work together, and we make that difference for the future.
And maybe if we start working on this, because I think the way the question is asked is also already typical. Why are we talking about getting more women into STEM, and why not about getting more men into healthcare or into education?
Exactly.
Because it's exactly the same thing, like the gender balance in the sectors is off. So maybe we should ask that question as well. Okay, how do we get more guys into healthcare? Because we know we need like many more people in the healthcare sector in the upcoming years.
We have to wear a separate set of glasses. We have to see it, don't we? And stop talking about measuring just certain areas. It's about get that culture right, and we will have a very diverse workforce, and people will be attracted in, and we'll naturally have all those role models. It will take time, because as we all know, changing culture in an organisation isn't something that happens overnight. It can take 5 years to really sort of work its way, at least, if not more.
That's a good point. We've run out of time, but I do have one last question, and I'm looking for short answers. How do you see the future of VET?
Bright.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Expanding.
Stefano?
Well, we observe that governments are reducing funding for VET, but a private sector is investing more. We observe some members that are receiving millions of euros, big investments. So we believe that skills are at the core, they are a priority. Also, another wonderful person that is dear to all of us is the former director of UNESCO UNEVOC, Shamal Majumdar. He was saying that skills are the common denominator of sustainable development goals. If you want to achieve any of the sustainable development, you need skills. So we see that VET is at the center of this process. We are well positioned to serve the society in the future.
I'll keep something short, but I'll say what my hope is for the future for VET is it's the first choice for every young person, not university.
Bravo.
Let's make it happen.
Bravo.
So with these optimistic closing thoughts, we wrap up this roundtable. We thank our speakers for their contributions. Please give a round of applause to Don Ward, Stefano Tirati, Madeleine Jonsson, and Boudewijn Grievink.
And thank you to you.
Thank you. Thank you, or as we say in Basque, eskerrik asko. There you have another word to learn. Eskerrik asko. Thank you all. You can take your seats. Thank you. Txalo bero bat, beraientzat.